Technology is more than just a habit. Google is now a verb, not a noun. Social media is a window to the world and an actual physical way of seeing. Today, we explore the reflective side of technology towards creating sustainable idioms in our next session. In this session, we have speakers who do extraordinary things with technology, creating a compelling language, matching technology with human imagination and being. For this session, please welcome Jyoti Narula Ranjan, the founder of SynTalk, a freewheeling interdisciplinary talk show with a philosophical approach to understanding the world from a long-term perspective. She is committed to creating a unique, globally recognized platform for original long-term conversations and thinking across disciplines. Jyoti has worked with several leading global and Indian tech and media companies and startups, including Google, Aricent, and Netcore. She has an MBA from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and an MCA from Delhi University. Please join me in welcoming her. Amit Pasricha is one of the world's foremost names in the field of panoramic photography. His collector's edition, the Monumental India book, was acclaimed as one of the top 10 coffee table books of the world in 2008. Its sequel, the Sacred India book, won the prestigious German Photo Book Award in 2014. His works have been exhibited in India, New York, London, Berlin, Minsk, Prague, and Sofia. They also form a part of several private collections. His current projects include India at Home, a panoramic book on people in their domestic spaces, One India, Many Lives, a book on Indian dualities, and The Forgotten Monuments. Please give him a huge round of applause. Madhushree Dutta is a filmmaker by profession, curator by hobby, and a pedagogue by compulsion. Gender, citizenship, and urban scapes are her chosen areas of work. She has won several national and international honors for her films. She was part of the jury for Berlin, the Berlin International Film Festival 2015. She is the founder and executive director of Majlis, a center for rights discourse and multidisciplinary arts initiative in Mumbai. Her latest curatorial project, Cinema City, Research, Art and Documentary Practices, was a multidisciplinary endeavor engaging 100 visual artists, architects, filmmakers, and social scientists. Her publications include Project Cinema City, an anthology co-edited with Kaushik Bhaumik and Rohan Shivkumar. Please join me in welcoming her. Come Carpentier de Gordon was born in the Canary Islands, Spain, to French parents, studied in Europe, India, and the USA, and has lived, traveled, and taught in more than 50 countries on 4 continents. He is currently the convener of the Editorial Advisory Board of World Affairs, the Journal of International Issues, and a member of advisory boards of various scholarly publications. He has authored more than 80 published papers and monographs in English, French, Spanish, and Italian, and has contributed to various collective volumes on history, philosophy, geopolitics, and international relations. He has authored From India to Affinity and Memories of 101 Moons. Please join me in extending him a very warm welcome.
First, thanks to Samanvai and to Rizio for providing this opportunity and doing so much work to make this event quite spectacular in its organization. And then while the setup is being finalized, I will say just a few words to situate the context of this panel, because it's not such an easy subject, and it involves a number of complex ideas which the panelists represent in very diverse ways. What I'd like to say first is that language has been the recreation of a reality which we perceive through our senses and interpret to our minds. And language, in a sense, has created another world, which is the mental world, that was then, much later in history, reflected in written text through first symbols that were attached to particular images, and then through alpha-syllabic and alphabetic codes. So in a way, language is a form of coding. It's a form of cryptography, because it doesn't have any natural, spontaneous, universal connection with the things that it is depicting. And therefore, what we have done is create our own world made of agreements between a particular group of people to be able to communicate. And that's, of course, a proliferation of languages. Now, we see in the world the thousands of languages, many of which are endangered or vanishing. And India, which is probably the most diverse, linguistically diverse country with over 1,600 languages and dialects. And we realized that in Indian history, languages were practiced simultaneously by people who belong to the same society and sometimes in the same region. For example, in Sanskrit plays, so-called Sanskrit plays, sometimes you have people who speak 7 different languages and who manage to understand each other. So there is no concept of monolinguistic hegemony. And yet, of course, there is a common context. But what's interesting is that technology is in a way bridging the gap between languages more and more through images, but also through well, basically the ability to communicate directly from mind to mind. I don't know if you heard of the Global Consciousness Project, but there is now a sense that you can connect electronics and cybernetics with the neural impulses in order to generate direct mind-to-mind communication. And we are not very far from that. So at that point, languages will become less important as an actual means of communication. They will remain critical to defining our cultural, our religious, our sectarian or ethnic belonging. But they will not necessarily be of such use simply because we will be probably through the cloud, through our electronic devices, we will be communicating through a meta-language which will be vastly made up of images. And that's where the work of artists, whether filmmakers or photographers, such as we have on this panel, is very important because it shows the way. After having been for so many centuries very dependent on the written and spoken word, we are probably going back to a pre-linguistic and pre-graphic universe. And that means a much more direct apprehension of what is being seen, what is being felt, and what is then being communicated. So after these very few words, I would like to open the discussion because I know that the panelists have a number of things not only to say but to show as well. And we, in principle, thought that we would ask, if she agrees, we would ask Ranjan to start perhaps, and then it will be Amit, and then Madhushree, if you agree with that order.
So unfortunately, we are going to have to mostly do this session where we were talking about alternate forms of communication other than the spoken word through the very spoken word, because I don't think you can see very much.
No, I mean, it's really very welcoming and radical concept to consider language beyond spoken words and written text. But the thing is that the structure of the festival is still conducive only to spoken words. It's not open to visual. So you'll have to suffer some kind of miscommunication in this session.
So thanks a lot to ILF, thanks a lot to Rizio, and thanks a lot to my panelists. I think due to whatever reasons, thanks to Sun, you won't be able to see much of what we are showing, but I'll try to make up by talking about it. And coming from what I'm representing, I think this should really match the spirit of Sin Talk. It's a pleasure to be here. Just by way of introduction, my team and I run a weekly audio internet talk show which is called Sin Talk. And the one-line description which the compare just gave for me is short for Synthesis Talk. It's a freewheeling interdisciplinary talk show with a philosophical approach to understanding the world from a long-term perspective. This is our one-line vision, and our impulses are conceptual and theoretical. In the long run, we aspire to become a global platform for fenceless thinking. I would encourage you guys to check us out online. You can listen to all our episodes. They are freely available. Just Google Sin Talk. What I'll do in the next couple of minutes is, by Combs' permission, share some thoughts around 3-4 keywords from the discussion topic today. Those keywords that I'm focusing on are reflective, technology, sustainable, and idiom. The perspective I'm presenting is, of course, Syntalk's perspective, and we are a team of people that I'm representing here. In our tentative view, the answer to the abstract poser here probably lies at the intersection of 4 following concepts, which are questioning, filter bubble, skill, and infinite games. And to illustrate this thesis as we go ahead, I'll also take an example of Twitch, which is a metagaming platform now owned by Amazon, that will give you a sense of what we are trying to convey here. I hope it will make some sense to some of you, and I'm happy to engage after the session with anyone who's interested. So just spending a minute on the first word, reflective. For us, this word is really about questioning. And this word is closest to the multidimensionality of concepts. What we believe is reflection is more about questioning and not just answering. The process itself is recursive. It's reflective in its nature. It feeds into itself. And over a very, very long run, it helps one to create or appreciate emergent complexity. The next word, technology. Well, Syntalk is built on technology, and my co-panelists will also talk about how they are using technology. But as Syntalk, our view on technology is in a very general sense. We think of technology as anything that extends our senses. What technology gives to platform like us is a toolkit to think about the bigger vision. The most striking concept in our current context, however, is filter bubbles. And when I say filter bubbles, it's not just a top-down, autocratic, technocratic constraint, but filter bubbles are also created by all of us individually. The more predictable we become, the more predictable we are, the more predictable we become. So for a technology to be sustainable or to be really valuable, because it operates at the level of perception, it has to facilitate access to the unknown. What is filter bubble? What exactly is it to be the unknown? What are the modes in which we can access the invisible present? These are the questions that drive our view on technology. Coming to the next word of this discussion topic, sustainable. And it flows from our view on technology. We believe that anything that has to be sustainable will have to be ecological and think in a more holistic manner. Probably one of the traits of the beautiful world is the capability to facilitate a wider pattern recognition and translation. So a sustainable technology will have to be built around shared love. It will be built around, or it has to be built around a common set of skill. Skill is what we believe is the core when we are thinking about sustainable technology. A skill which can be mastered infinitely. This kind of a system will be non-teleological, without an end really. This kind of a system will probably be like a large-scale mind. Some parts of it could be already existing, but that's what we think is sustainable technology. The heart of an infinite skill is also the concept of infinite game. And I'll give an example, like I mentioned in the beginning. I'll also illustrate using Twitch once I have spent a minute around idioms. So how we think of idioms now, idioms is really the territory of future. And for us, future is anything that is not present. So it's kind of a distinction between, we are not saying that future is something which is new. It could be past which is reappearing in future. Anything that is not present for us is probably the future. And again, in our view, we think the core fundamental unit of the idiom of the future is a casual, two-person conversational system. For us, this is the fundamental unit, as I said. Two-person system, one-on-one. We don't believe that the future is social. We don't believe that the future would be social. Like, at least not in the way it's understood today. We tend to think that the current systems of one-to-many and many-to-many are really more like one-to-no-one and no-one-to-no-one. Most of these systems are now nearing saturation, or they're becoming abusive ghost towns. And this is where, our illustration of Twitch comes in. So Twitch is a meta-gaming platform for video gamers. For those of you who haven't yet been introduced to Twitch, it's, just to simplistically put it, it's a platform where you can watch others play video games. Now, this platform enables engagement at a highly intimate level. And the engagement also involves a certain level of understanding of the skill. We think Twitch is highly, highly valuable. And the way we look at future idioms, we think it will be more like an infinite game where platforms like Twitch will not just aid pattern recognition, they will aid translation, and they'll also aid mimicking engagement at the level of the skill. And as a corollary of this, any domain which has 0 to very low level of thresholds of acquiring skills or understanding skills, we believe they might just end with a whimper. Lastly, for one of the way we also look at future is probably some of the select species barriers will break. For all we know, a couple of years down the line, I might be able to understand what the parrots above are talking. Some technology can facilitate that. Some animals might enter our conversation indirectly, imperfectly. For reasons like these and many others, we as Syntalk believe that audio has a great promise in the future. At the micro-recursive level of a two-person system, audio will never be replaced. And that's our view or about the future idioms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very rich and thought-provoking presentation. And actually, there is already a lot of understanding of what parrots say. And some zoologists have been able to understand that parrots do speak different languages in different areas. So they are like us. They are broken into linguistic families. Now, may I ask Amit to give us the benefit of his visual work?
Well, partly visual work because it's a bit washed out. I think that was really engaging and very provoking, you know, from a large point of view for me as well, because I mean, even though audio doesn't sort of configure itself naturally into the systems through which I work, but they are sort of contiguous systems and everything overlaps so intelligently and well that I think some of these thoughts will sort of obviously percolate into works that I do. I'm going to sort of look at it a bit black and whitish, to take a photographic term, and sort of look at, on the one spectrum, the world of images today. Photography, as we all know, is born through technology. Photographers know that, and even today, the amazing thing about this technology is that they still insist on having their portraits taken with a camera. I mean, an artist will not hold his brush, a filmmaker may use but a photographer is likely to have a camera as a mark of, you know, knowing that, look, I'm technologically related somewhere. So began there, and then we sort of come to today, which is where the miniaturization of technology happens. So, I mean, we've got access to technology everywhere. We've got, and so you would think this is remarkable. I mean, it is, what a time it is, what a time we're living in, a century where everything is kind of clearly available to us. And you add to that the kind of uploads that happen. We've got 2 billion uploads of pictures every day. I mean, are we serious about that? 2 billion pictures are being uploaded on social media every day. And so that's, you know, that's how big it is. And of course, we don't have access to it. We won't get to see it. We will only obviously keep, it's being filtered for us all constantly, and we're only getting to see the images we want to see, and, you know, which are, but at the same time, the potential is there. So you would think that the possibility of exchange of ideas, of being creative in this realm, in this time, would be incredible. I mean, you would think that, you know, not only do you have access to technology, but you have also access to inspiration. You've got like A to Z of ways of iPhoneography, of, you know, of use of that technology, people's take on it, YouTube videos on, you know, little gimmicks on being able to sort of push the blanket always, and, you know, something that always keeps provoking you to sort of test and come up with something new. So that's your umbrella, and wonderful umbrella, and you think, you know, it's only growing, so where's it going to go? Okay, so this is where I think it goes. You can't see it. It looks like little dots. It's actually, it's that million images, which to me, today, I'd say is clutter. Um, I mean, it's sort of a very pointed point of view, saying that I don't think it sort of caters to anything. I don't think it caters to excellence. I don't think. So, how do I regard this? I regard this that in the language of photography, the masses out there are learning the very grammar of photography. It's like learning a new language. So, I mean, you start with your ABC. And so, we've got people sort of spending time learning and mastering in a certain way, speaking through photography. There's a bit of a difference between a photographer and somebody who's using the language like this. A photographer first learns his skills. As we all do, we train ourselves and we learn all sorts of rubbish rules first and then we apply them. And some people don't even go into applying them. They actually just, use the technology that they've learned and just keep sort of, working with technology. But what these people are doing is reverse. They wanted to express themselves, they wanted to say something, and they've come from that end of it. So completely the other side. And so it's like saying that we've got a textbook language, and now I want a street, version of it. So now that's the street version of photography being produced, literally, organically around the world. But of course, there's still got to be mastery over that language. So that's the way I sort of look at it. Now, where am I in all this? I mean, I was reborn through digital photography, actually. Before that is something I'm not really too proud of. It's at the same time that I got into doing panoramas. And what that time meant for me was that I saw that there was this capability to be completely in control of the image right from the start to the very end. So from conception to the end user, I had complete control using technology over something that I wanted to communicate. But for me, the writers always, that my communication always overrode. I mean, the technology was fantastic, but what I wanted to say was very important to me. I was always fascinated by interconnectedness of things. So, I mean, I would sort of look at our panel, for example. There's Come dressed up in a safari suit. There's me wearing a leather jacket. And so, in the interconnectedness of us is quite remarkable. Separately, it may not make any statement. And of course, there's a reason for it. He's going to a wedding. I'm going to a rock concert after this. So, but it's the interrelationships of how all that came together on a panel, and with you as an audience, with all these. It sort of excited me always. And that's what I sort of always work towards. The relationship of one with the other, and the relationship of all of this with the cosmos. I mean, because we are so remarkably big that we keep forgetting how small we are. So there was the Taj Mahal. You can hardly see it, but there's a huge umbrella over it, of a dark sky. But even the Taj Mahal kind of looked diminished. It wasn't, and there was this lone person standing in a corner which you can't see. Anyway, so for me, that was what I wanted to talk about to the world, was the fact that how this entire concept of big and small and interpersonal relationships is all to be sort of viewed differently, perhaps. And while I was sort of taking this bird's eye view, there's sort of a picture of a fort here, and with a bird there. that I was sort of feeling omnipresent. And I was also very grateful for the medium, because I mean, without that technology to be able to sort of collapse this entire world that's in front of me and even behind me onto a plane, I couldn't really communicate what I was feeling. I really couldn't do it. So I was very grateful that, and the panoramic format actually sort of helped me with this. So you could have this feeling of sort of literally hovering around the world and being able to communicate a certain thing. Sorry, the image doesn't say. So as I move forward, I kind of sort of wanted to enlarge the bubble of what I was doing. So I began to think, why is it that a photograph must be within a frame? And I thought, that's really because in the old days, film had to have a frame, but nowadays, there's no requirement of a frame. We've gone beyond on that. So my pictures began to lose the edges. They became bulbous and moved around, because my yardstick was that my photography must flow from what I can see. And if that's my observation platform, then my photography must be able to communicate similarly. So it sort of lost its shape. It sort of became a bit more organic. I even began to collapse time within photography, because there was this entire concept of the decisive moment, and there was, the split second, and you think to yourself that all these split seconds make up that story. And what is important? Is that split second of such relevance, or is that story more important? So I began to sort of go with it. So here, there's this man, he sort of prays and then he walks away. So, there are multiple images of him as he sort of goes through it. Consciously done, but done with the idea of sort of communicating a certain thing. And here, the monk sort of walks by with the prayer wheel. So he's sort of going through the monastery. Sorry, you can't see anything, I think. Now, on a sort of, having got all this technology, I've got to say, I still am very old-fashioned. I like not the digital world. In fact, I don't think the digital world does justice to anything serious that I have to offer in terms of photographs. Simplistic concepts work rather well. Anything complicated just gets lost within it. And so I still sort of am really old-fashioned. I print books. I make everything into a coffee table book, which I think will sort of outlast and outlive all the digital, because at the end of the day, I feel the technology is an enabler, and it's your vision and it's your message that becomes more important and shouldn't get subservient to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot to say, but I won't say it now. I am always reminded that when you see a photograph or a painting, if you don't see at least a name beneath it, the name of the place, or if you don't see a little text, most of the time you will have trouble relating to it. You may relate to it aesthetically, but then you will want to know more, and that's why there is always a little explanation. We are so dependent on the discursive interpretation. Madhushree, please.
Thank you, Kam. I want to tell one thing to Amit and Jyoti. When you see it from this angle, you actually see something. But I'm sure from there, you don't even see that much. So it's quite a pressure issue on us, on our very limited capacity with words, that we have to talk about images unseen. Never mind, let's give it a try. Well, since it is a festival of language, I have decided to contemplate on the narrative attribute of technology. Can technology itself be a narrative form? What are the cultural memories that are embedded in technology? Is it so? Is it that we see a technology, we sense a technology? By we, I mean naive consumers. Today, consumers are the gods. So let's talk about consumers. When we touch a technology or we use a technology as part of our consumption habit, does it bring a particular memory to us? So I'll talk about a project that we did a couple of years back. It's called titled Project Cinema City. It was an interdisciplinary collaborative project to explore the configuration between city and its cinema in the 20th century. In the a specific context of Bombay, Mumbai, but its concern was that relationship between modernity, urbanity, and cinema. Cinema, as we all know and well accepted, that is a very technology-intensive form. You cannot make cinema without technology. You cannot watch cinema without technology. But it is, I mean, because of that, I think the first time is technology also used for public culture, for public place, for places like this. I mean, one of the reasons today we are stumble upon this problem of visual, because today visual is all on our cell phone. It's a very private relationship with visual. We don't anymore watch things together. We don't need to. And that leads to this problem. We still may talk, listen to something together, concerts, political lectures, but we hardly see visuals together. But think of the memories of the open-air screening on makeshift curtains and with noisy film projectors, duck, 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 with the film reels getting torn exactly in the middle of a love song. That's a memory. That's a memory of technology. Or the ancillary program of Binaka Gitmala on every Sunday afternoon that was broadcasted actually from Radio Ceylon and brought adrenaline rush in our teenage years in every household in Indian subcontinent, which made the Indian subcontinent actually. Or the video technology, bringing entertainment home along with the TV technology and curtailing the home-based women's little public life by eventually shutting down the matinee Zenana shows. That's the afternoon film shows. I hope you, some of you remembers. These are actually as much history of technology as it is a cultural history, or to be precise, history of public culture. Now, this is where this project comes from. The Cinema City project was an ambitious project, very ambitious project involving more than 100 artists, architects, filmmakers, sound artists. There are many projects, many kind of outputs, multiple productions. It's humongous. But I shall present a very minuscule 0.01% project of it. At least I can see it, it's okay. As a grid of the project, I mean, since we say that entire century and entire cinema and entire city is saying like we'll do a project on life. So it needed a grid. So in order to create a grid on which we will then hang the project, we decided to collate a timeline, actually textual timeline of the public culture of the 20th century, Bombay, Mumbai. But it was not easy. It's very, okay, this did this happen, that did that happen. It was not so simple because the relationship between the city and its cinema is imaginary yet tactile. Complementary, also ambivalent. Momentary, still recyclable. In short, it speaks of a form and its apparition as well. The relative size and perspective, however, remain fluid and interchangeable. That means the ghosts sometimes look larger than the actual image. Often, now this problem, it also collapses the notion of distance. Often the distance look very close and the immediate looks very distant. For example, this woman, Shushila, who was born in the city of Bombay, and when I interviewed her in 2011, she was 35 years old. So 35-year-old domestic worker who spent her entire life in no other land than the city, metropolis of Mumbai, tells me, last year I went to town. That is, people who don't know the city, the southern end of the city, the oldest end of the city, the colonial city is called town in the colloquial term of Bombay. So last year I went to town, that means the real city. I saw the sea, the train lines, buildings, Gateway of India, roads, they are exactly like in cinema. I felt like I have seen them all. For her, the memory of watching Amitabh Bachchan running on the promenade along the sea, seen in the open-air Parda cinema with her entire neighborhood, is the primary image through which she negotiates her own lived experiences of happening to go to Gateway of India one day at the age of 35. So, for us, a device crisscrossing technologies and narrative forms had to be evolved to attend to this blurring of experiences and imaginations. The ghost has to be accommodated. So what we did, you won't be able to see it, so I'll read that. A volume of text fragments were collated, and they are not the way historians collate facts. So they are comprising policies, events, descents, movements, memoirs, rumors, beliefs, gossip, fictions, everything. For example, this is 1900, beginning of the 20th century, from Himalayan villages or from pilgrims of the Arabian and Persian Gulf, or from the ships sailing from Hong Kong or from contaminated water. Municipality commissioner cites probable causes for the plague epidemic from 1896 to 1901. So something that we are claiming is the history of cinema in the city. We start what the municipal commissioner cited as the cause of the epidemic. And why so? Because in our understanding, the epidemic could have come from Himalayan villages, or through Arabian pilgrims, or through water, or through land, or from Hong Kong, just like urbanity, modernity, and cinema. So the plague disease and the official cause of it became as important as that. Next is health department undertakes drastic measures to control epidemic, forced evacuation, raising bamboo huts, police searches, isolation and defection. Epidemic Disease Act invoked. Bombay City Improvement Trust is set up. 1897, first motor car arrives in Bombay, 3 years after its invention in the West. 1896, 1 year before that, so we are going backwards, living photographic pictures in life-size reproductions by Messrs. Lumiere Brothers at Watson's Hotel, Esplanade Mansion, Kalagora. The sea bath, arrival of a train, a demolition, ladies and soldiers on wheels and leaving the factory, moving images that become leitmotifs of cinema in the next century. Public screenings open at Novelty Theatre, Grant Road. Now, this is just the pre-century timeline of the public. So in that, the epidemic, the government measures to control the epidemic, which brings the control of public places, public life, and cinema, and communication technology, that is motor car, come together. Now, like this, we did it for first every year and then every decade, and we collated a timeline, and which became, as you can see, impossible to attend to. So what we did then, this timeline, which is fat, huge, humongous, mad, wild, very accessible but impossible to attend to kind of text, and we distributed it to 60 artists, architects, filmmakers and designers, and requested them to respond to it from their specific position of practice, lineage and proclivity. They said, how? What do we do with it? We said, just pick up any 1 year that excites you and design a calendar, imagining you are designing it for that year. Okay. So, 2-3 things happening here. One is that we just collated the random informations and we invited, so it became a collaborative, participatory speculation. We are not saying this is the past, because past will happen only when we handle this information. Because information by itself, by now we know, has no life of its own, at least no social life, unless it is handled. And so in handling, the past has to be speculated. Past is not fixed. So what happened? I have some calendars. Unfortunately, I don't know how much you can see. So what we did actually, on the other hand, the popular memories of dead calendars, which is a yesteryear technology of printing. Who has not grown up with the Ravi Verma oleographs hanging on your wall? Any Indian, even today. So those memories we wanted to summon. The evolution of printing technology, its phenomenal outreach in public life, its iconizing strategies and commercial agenda were evoked and reversioned within the digital culture, because all these images are done within the digital culture. It wouldn't have been possible. So what we did, we gave them the information, we gave the artist also some found images related to that time, and told them, oh, do whatever you want. Using digital technology, layer them with your current work, layer them in any way. So I'll quickly tell you, this is a image made for 1911, the screening of a Christ film by the Bible Society. Now, Bible Society, according to me, is the oldest film society in the world, because after every Sunday, they used to show the Christ life cinemas all over the world, especially in the colonies. And first 20 years, Europe and Hollywood only made Christ films. Okay? This is Under Lovelies. This is a line of women's undergarments named after the female superstars of the silent era in 1939. Okay, unfortunately you can't see them, but they're called Sulochana braziers, modern girl panties, Patience Cooper, Songbird, and the title says, Sweetie makes you a star, Sweetie raises your standing in society, 1939. These calendars are documents of contemporary thinking of our peers and varied perceptions relating to the previous century. It could only be done with the interface between digital and the printing technology, which is hugely analogous. Nargis in Mother India to sell agricultural appliances in 1958. A Raja Ravi Verma image to propagate Nasbandi in 1975, emergency. Okay, this is Menaka offering Shakuntala, and Vishwamitra said, I can't even look at it. So the title card said, why cry over split milk? Trojan horse, rubbers and condoms. So the project became a collective exercise of digital annotation of analogous past. Colors no bar. Own a color TV, India is no longer black and white. 1983, during Asian Games, Doordarshan introduced color TV. So it is a calendar on that. Ranveer Kaleka, very known and very celebrated artist of Delhi. Passion Fruit. This is a new computer OS to facilitate fantasy. Own the hardware, you will be able to paint like Ranveer Kaleka of fantasy. So they are all created individually. There are 60 such calendars. I'm just showing you some samples. The whole thing is on emergency, this series. So though they are created individually and independently, only when they were laid out together did these speculations create a distinguishable line of reflection from the known history. This is the participatory history by written collectively, but independently. Collective doesn't mean you write one sentence, I write one sentence. Collective means we perceive independently and put it together to create a narrative. So again, it is a interface between analogous and digital. These digital works made in 2010-11 also had an agenda of developing a product line of copies without an original. Original, which is a very analogous concept on which the world has gone into war many a times. What is original work and who holds the copyright? So this is also a movement against copies without an original and a digital movement. Made with the aid of new technologies and discourses, and yet pretending to be copies of something that never really materially existed. We are saying it's a 1970 calendar, it is looking like a copy, but actually that calendar never existed. So it's a copy without an original. But it is, everybody is taking it as a copy because everybody thinks such a thing existed because of the collected memory of Parda cinema kind of a thing. We believe that such an image existed, but actually it never existed. We take advantage of that belief and make a new image, and we say it's a copy, so that we completely bypass this whole holy war on original. So that was one small guerrilla war against making street artifacts into assets, into the museums and archives. So Rizu has told me that I also have to talk about archive. So this is a non-archiving archive project, Rizu. But still, 60 calendars are not still good enough to make such an intervention. I mean, it's good to make a presentation here and make a tall claim, but actually it means nothing. 60 calendars in a 1 billion people's country goes like this. So one thing what we did, that we printed some of the calendars in litho-looking print. They're all digital prints, and put it in the Chor Bazaar, in the second-hand market, with the hope after 20 years, if I had any grandchildren, with them I would have gone to Chor Bazaar, and some Chor Bazaar stall owner will tell me, "Madam, this is a very rare original piece," and take one Raja Ravi Varma Nazbandi calendar, with that hope to offset this whole asset of the past. Rather, look at the potential of the past. So what we did, we realized that it's not enough. We'll have to do something more. So we had to then put this exercise, why 60 privileged artists? Everybody can do it. So we thought of many devices and games so that we put this game of speculating on the past in the public place. So for that we had to go back again to the analogous, memory of the analogous technology. So we developed mass-used devices and sites like bioscope, telephone booth, photo studio, reading room table, digital archive console, and museum shop as artworks, and put them in the public place. I will only talk about one, that is bioscope. You see this bioscope is a contemporary adaptation of the old bioscope that we all played in the melas. And if you press this button that you see these children are holding, then something happens inside. So you'll have to, it's a self-motored, you'll have to run it yourself. I don't know whether you can see it or not, never mind, I'll have to talk about it. So what is bioscope? It's an exhibition device that is delicately balanced on the cusp of folk practices and technology-intensive performance of the celluloid. As the bioscope traveled from neighborhood to neighborhood, from mela to mela, actually it had no commitment to narrative. In cinematic terms, it is a pre-narrative device. The images that moved, we are very happy with that. So it could be an image of Eiffel Tower, then an image of Taj Mahal, then Sulochana doing a dancing number in Silent Era. It could be anything. Actually, even we played, I don't know, many of you might have played that Bata boxes ke samne ek lens laga ke, and then you get any negative and run it and make a bioscope. So you could do it. This is our first relationship with communication technology and first relationship with visual narrative in a pre-narrative sense. So we tried to evoke that. Inside what we did, as you press the button, a cityscape and an assembly line of matinee idols for 100 years run to establish the cityscape of Bombay. And then, inside is a roulette game where the information that I told you, in various ways they run. It's a roulette game, and as you press the button, the information will stop in any order. Now you have to go on pressing the button till the time you think that you got the right order of history. So you decide what is the right order of history. So this is how we are inviting people to speculate on it. Since you can't read it, I will read it for you, one possibility. Like one possible combination could be this, because there are 3 strips, every strip has 3 information. So one is 1905, Gujarati drama at Wangwari is staged for workers late in the night. 1914-20, high trafficking of soldiers, brokers, traders, camp followers, POWs and luxury goods in services of World War I. 1925, location, Grant Road Telephone Exchange in Telephone Girl. Next, 1938, private newsreel initiative, Indian Screen Gadget. 1942, unaccounted war profit permeating into film business causes collapse of studio system. Mid-70s, to show blockbuster multi-starrer films, large cinema halls with seating capacity of 1,000 or more came up. 1949, exhibition of approved documentaries made compulsory under cinema licensing rule. 1960, Kala Bazar, Devanand sells cinema tickets in black for Mother India at Liberty Theatre. 1983, Kundan Shah's Jane Vido Yaro. Now you decide, do you think this is the right order of history? Otherwise go on playing, still you get them in the right order. So again, these are all guerrilla war effect. And it is all about, if you don't have a memory of bioscope, this game will not successful. If you don't have a memory of oleograph hanging in your grandmother's wall, then the calendars will not work. Then after all these are done, we collated all these experiences into a publication, back to publication and text. But now the text actually is layered with all these games and imagination, which were essentially digital possibilities. Okay, that's the end of it. I forgot to refute one thing which has been said in my introduction, that I have got multiple national awards. I returned those awards a fortnight back, so I don't hold any national awards anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It reminds me of this famous sentence that language is an application of memory, actually. And we do create the past. There is that famous time-space interrelation, you know, that essentially the space comes from the past, while time, in a sense, is a pull from the future. Anyway, I'm afraid we have eaten largely into the lunch hour, and I also am running very late for something I have to go to in Gurgaon, so I wouldn't like to disrupt the proceedings, and if you want to stay further and have a discussion, yes, please.
Hello. Yeah. I think in these times we're facing issue too in these times. So there is perhaps a need for collective action, collective movements. So I am wondering, like in this forum, like how would you respond to this? Like, you know, do you think it is completely redundant now? You know, this aspect of collective simultaneous action, is it completely redundant? Have we come to a point where it is only one-to-one, you know, that two-person communication and that idiom which is relevant? You know, I would like all of you to respond to this, because I really feel we are at a time when collective action is still very relevant, mass movements are still very relevant, and technology, visual, audio, whatever, they have to contribute to the propagation of some of these things also.
Am I audible? So I think I'm again the scapegoat here, because I brought in the two persons term here, but I'm not sure if I can directly address your concern, Rizio. As a citizen, I may have some opinion, and I won't take this as a platform to air them, but as Syntalk, when we say that we think that a probable idiom is a two-person conversational casual system, we mean it along with the other aspects, that the system is recursive in nature. It has a level of understanding of skill, and you know, my co-panelists actually gave me a lot of instances to pull from. So I'll do that from Amit's presentation, when he mentioned that a photographer learns a skill first. So if you think of a musician and try to, you know, look into the future in this particular system and how we think of it, that musician has to engage with at a two-person level, not with just himself, in the sense of improving upon his skill, like a photographer would. You know, how Amit, from what he started with digital photography, then took control over, you know, doing panorama. He felt he was in control, and in his mind also, his photography skills are an infinite game. And a musician, if a corollary is drawn there, he has to engage with himself. He has to probably engage with fans at that level. So what we think is that the future technology, if it is gonna be sustainable, and we should not forget that at the back of technology is still humans, right? A lot of people, a lot of companies might like to take credit, like Google might want to take credit that, sorry, Facebook or Twitter might want to take credit that Arab Spring happened because of them, but that's not true. It was people who really drive these things. So whatever will be the future of technology, and I'm not the expert here, I'm not a political scientist, I'm not a critical theorist myself, but that's a very relevant question for us to also contemplate upon. However, we believe that this idiom of a two-person system gives us the maximum potential to really, explode in capabilities, because then you are not bound by rules. So when we think of infinite games, and I probably missed mentioning it when I was presenting, we think of game as a paradigm because what games are intrinsically is a way of responding to constraints. So think of football. In football, you're always playing. It's not like, chess and these are two different kinds of games, instinctive and turn-based games. So we think of the game paradigm more in the sense of instinctive games where you're always playing, and this playfulness could be utilized to probably drive a mass movement. It could become a response to an urgent call of action that you would want. But the most important thing is that the engagement has to be at the skill level. So these systems which are dumbed down, which don't expect any kind of skills to be acquired, those technology systems may not last very long, is our tentative view. And I'll probably have my co-panelists speak on it further.
No, I think I just want to add to what you're saying. I mean, it's understood that at the back end of it, there is that deep interaction. But this is, I think, maybe Rizio is referring to the front end of it, which is when it goes out, when it sort of interacts with the world, is vis-a-vis like photographs with an audience, because then there is that power of reaching the many, which is, I think, what she's referring to. And obviously, I don't think there is any dispute of that happening at all, because, I mean, increasingly technology enables you to reach out to increasing audiences in the one-to-many and many-to-many routes. I mean, we've just had a Delhi Photo Festival with incredible amount of exhibitions, and it was not possible. I mean, it's only now that you can create these platforms and bring so many people together like here also. So I'm completely in agreement on both fronts, but she's right too. She's right that at the back end, we've got to sort of the inception happens to be a very private world that way.
Okay, I completely, that I will be with you in this question. And I think that we are actually crossing a huge space in this panel, and that's why this confusion happening. One, we are talking about production end, imagination end, and another one, we are talking about outreach and the consumption end. And it's a consumer's world at the moment right there, which is actually completely clouding over the production end. And as practitioners, we are also talking about production end, the possibilities, imagination, skill, in various names we are calling it. I'm calling it memory, Amit calling it skill, she's calling it imagination. So there are these things. But the problem is that ultimately, I mean, I think time has come, we should take technology as a sociological subject very, very seriously. And for that, I will put the ball in your court and say all sociologists need to understand technology now. It's no more out there, we only read the book or we only see the film and we say that story is right or wrong. That time has gone. Technology is a major sociology today, and you are talking about collective. I think even collective, the word collective should come under scrutiny, because today collective is an alibi for majoritarianism. Okay, today collective has elected the government that it has. Today collective is kicking the butt of Shah Rukh Khan, the biggest superstar ever in the subcontinent. So collective, the romance of collective also has to be questioned, you know, and that thing, that actually it may not be collective. It may not be not even 0.00001% of the citizens. But because of technology's outreach, that looks like that is the representative collective. So that is the consumption end of technology. So unless you take the sociology of technology very seriously, put it in the discourse, involve the practitioners with the theoreticians, that's the way to do it, because today's market is that. Everybody makes film these days, everybody can make film, not because everybody has learned to make films, because Sony and Canon at one point decided they will not sell, say, 1,000 movie camera to Indian film industry. Rather, they will sell 1 million cell phone camera to 1 million Indians. It is a market decision has taken. So today everybody is making films. So all these things, I mean, that's why we'll have to be very interdisciplinary.
Yes, yes.